Hello everybody, Corey here. We are going to go over the daily trades for the single stock ETFs and the holdings. Just a reminder, I obtain data, make it readable, and present the data here on YouTube. I provide facts so that you can use the information in addition with your research and knowledge of these funds already to make decisions and your own opinions. I am not a qualified licensed investment or financial advisor, and I am an amateur investor. Just a reminder that YieldMax ETFs are very risky. They define all these different risks on their website. If you haven't read them, I would suggest you do that. So we're just going to go to the holdings, straight to the holdings. We don't have our first trades until we get to Nestle. So we're just going to start off here with AIYY. And then if you didn't already know, today was a green day for the market. So most, if not all, I can't remember now off the top of my head, the ETFs went up. I guess I could look here on the daily thing real quick. Tesla, that's right, Tesla. So everybody went up except for Tesla. But anyway, we have AIYY at 1184 and AI closed at 21.57. We have a short call that expires this Friday with a strike price of $22, and we also have our synthetic, which expires next Friday with a strike price of $22. So we are 2% below the short call and the synthetic strike prices here. If we go over here to column AB, this just shows that basically the synthetic, which is the top line there, is bringing the stock price down 20 cents. And for our short call, it's bringing it down 19 cents. But we're at 21.57, so we're only about 43 cents away here. So if these can get, up a little bit more, then hopefully we can close out this synthetic without losing too much more money, because this last one we lost over $10 million, which is why the stock prices dropped significantly. You can see that the net assets is only 27.7. So this stock price is not going to recover. I don't expect that it's going to recover, but what they did when they did the new synthetic, they only pushed it out like 3 weeks. Of course, they did drop the strike price from like $35 to $22. But anyway, let's move on to AMDY. It closed today at 16.57. AMD closed at 148.64. We have 2 short calls that expire this week with strike prices of 155 and 157, and we're currently underneath them by 4 and 6%. And then we have the synthetic position that expires in 3 weeks, and we're 26% underneath the strike price. If we look over on the right hand side, we can see that being significantly underneath that synthetic position is causing the stock price to be down $5.63, and then we got the short calls with down negative 10 cents. So if we can get AMD stock to go up, then our stock price will go up due to it getting closer to the strike price for the synthetic position, and then this would start going down. All right, let's move on. And then just look over here. If you see, if we had to pay this today, we're looking at $35 million to close that out, and the net assets is only 103,000. If we go down to AMZ, it closed at 22.43. Amazon closed at 177.23. And then you can see here we have 3 short calls that expire this week with strike prices 180, 182.50, and 187.50, and we're currently underneath those 2, 3, and 5%. We have our synthetic position that expires in 3 weeks with a strike price of 185, and we're 4% underneath that, which is costing us 90 cents a share. If we move on to Apple, it closed at 16.23 while Apple closed at 165.84. We have 3 short calls that expire this week with straight prices of 167.50, 170, and 172.50. We have a synthetic position with a straight price of 170 that expires in 3 weeks, and we're underneath that by 2%, which is bringing the stock down 36 cents a share. If we move on to Coney is up $1 something today. It is at 20. It closed at 24.04 while coin closed at 225.86. We have 3 short calls that expire this week: 132.50, 135, and 155, and we're currently 3, 4, and 11% below those. However, we have our synthetic that expires in 3 weeks with a strike price of 260, and we're currently underneath that by 13%. And we can see that the synthetic position is bringing the stock down $3.53. And this is the most expensive I've seen for short calls. This shows it's bringing the stock down 58 cents. Of course, I mean, we're not over it. We are getting close to it. But the closer we get to Friday, as long as we don't go over it, those will go down significantly. But we can also see on the left-hand side, if we needed to close this out today, it would cost our short calls $9.5 million, but our synthetic positions almost negative $60 million there. We have Disney here that closed at $20.20. Dizzo 2020, and Disney is closed at $111.99. Our short call that expires this Friday is 114, and we're currently 2% underneath that. But then we have our synthetic that expires in 3 weeks with a strike price of 120, and we're currently negative at 7%, which is bringing the stock down $1.34 a share. Moving on to Phoebe, it closed at $20.96. Meta closed at $481.73, and we have, I just thought about earnings. We have short call that expires this Friday with 550 strike price, and we're currently underneath that by 12%. And we have 2 synthetic positions that were $515 strike price and $525, and we're currently underneath those by 6 and 8%. If you look at what this is costing us share price wise, our synthetics are bringing the stock down $1.76, while the short call is negative 13 cents. If we move on to GUI here, GUI closed at 1740. Alphabet closed at 156.28. We have 2 short calls that expire this week, 160 and 162.50 strike prices, and we're currently underneath them by 2 and 4%. You can see that the synthetic position here is actually bringing the stock price up 77 cents a share. If we move on to JPMO closed today at $20.02. JP Morgan closed at $182.41. We have 3 short calls that expire this Friday, 180, 182.50, and 185, and we are currently above all of those strike prices, 2, 4, and 5%. Our synthetic position, we are below that by 5%. If we look at what's happening over here per share, our synthetic position is bringing down the stock price by $1.05, while our short calls here are bringing the stock down 71 cents due to them being over the strike prices there. Let's move on. Okay, we have Murny here that closed at $20.14, and Moderna closed at $104.46. We have an error here. All right, I apologize for that. So now you can see we have two short calls here, one that expires this Friday and one for next Friday. We have strike prices of 106 and 108, and we're currently underneath them 1 and 3%. We do have a synthetic position that expires in 3 weeks with 110 strike price, and we're currently underneath that by 5%, which is bringing the stock down $1. And then, of course, our synthetic or short call that's further out is bringing the stock down 66 cents. However, the closer we get, as long as we don't go over the strike price, that should get a little better there. If we're looking at MSFO, the stock closed at 21.09. Microsoft closed at $400.96. We have two short calls that expire this week with strike prices of 415, 432.50. We are currently underneath those by 3 and 7%. We have synthetics expiring 3 weeks with a strike price of 425, and we are currently underneath those by 6%, which is bringing the stock share price down by $1.22. We move on to Misty. Misty went up $3 and something today to 32.65. MicroStrategy is at 1,324. They have two short calls with that will expire this Friday with the strike prices at 13.95, which is almost all of them, and then we have four contracts at 1,400. We're currently 5% underneath the strike prices. As far as the synthetic, we are above those by 15%, so we can see that the synthetic is bringing the share price up $4.23, while that synthetic that we're just 5% under is bringing the stock price down 95 cents. All right, and then we have Nestle here. So let's see what they did. I went past it, didn't I? So Nestle, they closed out. Okay. They rolled the short call that they had that was going to expire this Friday with a strike price of $6.55 to the same expiration day but with a lower strike. So they lowered it to $585 for the same amount of contracts. So you can see that they ended up making about $40,000 in premium off of that. Let me just make sure. I don't think we had any others that closed anything out. Nope. Okay. All right. So going back over here, we see Nestle closed at $16.73, while Netflix closed at $554.60. And you see here we have the new short call with the 745 contracts. With that strike price of $5.85, in which we're currently under 5%. But we have our synthetic positions that expire in 3 weeks with a strike price of $6.35, and we're currently underneath those by 13%, which is causing the stock to be down $2.30. If we move on to NVIDIA, it closed at $24.31, with NVIDIA closing at $795.18. As you can see here, they added 95 contracts to the synthetic position and created a new short call with the 95 contracts expiring this Friday with a strike price of $810, in which we're currently 2% under. Then we also have the short calls with the $840 and $850 strike prices that expired this Friday, in which we're under them by 5 and 6%. Then we have the synthetic strike price the synthetic that expires in 3 weeks with a strike price of $9.15, and we're currently underneath that by 13%, which is bringing the stock price down $3.55 a share. If we move on to OARC, it closed at $11.18. ARC closed at $42.60. They added 215 contracts to the synthetic position. Then they added 100 to the short call strike price of 44 and created a new position for the short call strike price 43 with 115 contracts. And then we also have the short call with the $45 strike price. So we have three short calls, all expiring Friday, 43, 44, and 45, in which we're underneath 1, 3, and 5%. And then we have a synthetic position that expires in 3 weeks with a strike price of $50, and we're currently 15% underneath that, which is bringing the stock down $1.91. If we move on to PayPay, they closed at $18.55. PayPal closed at $63.19. They added 90 contracts to the synthetic position and to the short call with the $64 strike price. We also have a $65 strike price, and both short calls expired this Friday, and we're currently underneath those 1 and 3%. Then we had this synthetic position that expires in less than 3 weeks with a $65 strike price, and we're underneath that by 3%, which is bringing the stock down 45 cents. If we move on to SQUE, it closed today at 21.81. Block closed at 71.60. We had 2 short calls that expire Friday with strike prices $74 and $75, and we're currently underneath those 3 and 5%. Then we have a synthetic position with a strike price of $80 that expires in 3 weeks, and we're currently underneath that by 11%, which is bringing the stock price down $2.44. If we look at Tesla here, is the only stock that was down today, and in fact, it went down to at least 140.50 because I think I had some fills this morning or yesterday morning at that price, but I haven't really looked at it. But yeah, Tesla was down at $12. It closed at $12.98. Tesla closed at $142.05. We have 2 short calls with strike prices, $160, $250, and $175. They both expired this Friday, and we are below those by 13 and 19%. But we have 2 synthetic positions that expire in less than 3 weeks with strike prices $170 and $175, and we need to really get above those positions, above those strike prices. We're currently, well, I think I might have said that negative 16 and negative 19%. Those synthetic positions are bringing this stock price down $2.81. And as you can see on the left-hand side, if we had to close this synthetic out today, it would cost us $127 million, and our net assets are only $588,000. So roughly 20% of our net assets, just to close those out as of today. But then we move on to Zomo, which closed at $18.40. Exxon closed at $120.56. They added 35 contracts to the synthetic position and 35 to the short call with the strike price of $123. We also have 2 other short calls with the strike prices of $121 and $122. All of the short calls expired this Friday, and we're currently underneath them by 0, 1, or 2%. The 0% is 43 cents away. And then we have our synthetics with a strike price of $120. We're barely over that, but it is bringing the stock up by 5 cents there. Then we have YMAG here that closed a little bit up at $18.94. And then we have YieldMax here that closed at $19.69. And you'll see as of today, Misty has showed up as one of the underlines in YieldMax. I went back and double checked just to make sure I didn't miss it yesterday or Friday, and no, it was not there, but it is here today. I don't know why my screen is now going crazy. There we go. So you can see 185,000 shares. which has mostly depleted the cash. It looks like we have about 1.5 million left in cash after that. So that's the one thing I did not look at before. Oh, we were already at YieldMax. Guess that's where I was looking. Yeah, so before that, well, we only had, yeah, so they must have rebalanced because they didn't have enough cash here to purchase those. And it should have been a rebalance. It's just that I haven't, this would be, I guess, the first time I've seen them rebalance. And I guess they're really only having to do it because, mostly because of having a brand new ETF. Otherwise, they could just keep adding to the positions at the percentage that it needed to be, but having to do a brand new one, they needed to come up with the money. And you can see right now the market value is $6 million, so they would have had to have pulled some from the rest of those to pay that, to purchase those. But anyway, that is the end of the trades and holdings for today. Sorry, I feel like that was a little long. Maybe it was just me having to keep stopping to cough or whatever, but hopefully I'm not getting sick again. But anyway, I'll let y'all go, and I will talk to y'all tomorrow. Bye.